public meeting, delighted himself by his treatment of the collar, and was only recalled to the cares of life by Michael Finsbury's rattle at the door. "Well, what's wrong?" said Michael, advancing to the grate, where, knowing his friend's delight in a bright fire, Mr. Pitman had not spared the fuel. "I suppose you've come to grief somehow." "There is no expression strong enough," said the artist. "Mr. Semitopolis's statue has not turned up, and I am afraid I shall be answerable for the money. But I think nothing of that. What I fear, my dear Mr. Finsbury, what I fear, alas, that I should have to say it, is exposure. The Hercules was to be smuggled out of Italy, a thing positively wrong, a thing which a man of my principles and in my responsible position should have taken, as I now see too late, no part whatever."
"This sounds like very serious work," said the lawyer. "It will require a great deal of drink, Pitman."
"I took the liberty of, in short, being prepared for you," replied the artist, pointing to the kettle, a bottle of gin, a lemon, and glasses. Michael mixed himself a grog, and offered the artist a cigar. "No, thank you," said Pitman. "I used occasionally to be rather partial to it, but the smell is so disagreeable about the clothes."
"All right," said the lawyer. "I'm comfortable now. Unfold your tale." At some length Pitman set forth his sorrows. He had gone today to Waterloo, expecting to receive the colossal Hercules, and he had received instead a barrel not big enough to hold Discobolus. Yet the barrel was addressed in the hand, with which he was perfectly acquainted, of his Roman correspondent. What was stranger still, a case had arrived by the same train, large enough and heavy enough to contain the Hercules, and this case had been taken to an address now undiscoverable.
"The vanman, I regret to say it, had been drinking, and his language was such as I could never bring myself to repeat. He was at once discharged by the superintendent of the line, who behaved most properly throughout, and is to make inquiries at Southampton. In the meantime, what was I to do? I left my address and brought the barrel home, but, remembering an old adage, I determined not to open it except in the presence of my lawyer."
"Is that all?" asked Michael. "I don't see any cause to worry. The Hercules has stuck upon the road. It will drop in tomorrow or the day after. And as for the barrel, depend upon it, it's a testimonial from one of your young ladies, and probably contains oysters."
"Oh, don't speak so loud," cried the little artist. "It would cost me my place if I were heard to speak lightly of the young ladies. And besides, why oysters from Italy? And why should they come to me addressed in Signor Riccardi's hand?"
"Well, let's have a look at it," said Michael. "Let's roll it forward to the light." The two men rolled the barrel from the corner, and stood it on end before the fire. "It's heavy enough to be oysters," remarked Michael judiciously.
"Shall we open it at once?" inquired the artist, who had grown decidedly cheerful under the combined effects of company and gin; and without waiting for a reply, he began to strip as if for a prize fight, tossed his clerical collar in the waste paper basket, hung his clerical coat upon a nail, and with a chisel in one hand and a hammer in the other, struck the first blow of the evening. "That's the style, William Dent," cried Michael. "There's fire for your money. It may be a romantic visit from one of the young ladies, a sort of Cleopatra business. Have a care, and don't stave in Cleopatra's head." But the sight of Pitman's alacrity was infectious. The lawyer could sit still no longer. Tossing his cigar into the fire, he snatched the instrument from the unwilling hands of the artist, and fell to himself. Soon the sweat stood in beads upon his large fair brow, his stylish trousers were defaced with iron rust, and the state of his chisel testified to misdirected energies. A cask is not an easy thing to open, even when you set about it the right way. When you set about it wrongly, the whole structure must be resolved into its elements. Such was the course pursued alike by the artist and the lawyer. Presently the last hoop had been removed, a couple of smart blows tumbled the staves upon the ground, and what had once been a barrel was no more than a confused heap of broken and distorted boards. In the midst of these, a certain dismal something, swathed in blankets, remained for an instant upright, and then toppled to one side and heavily collapsed before the fire. Even as the thing subsided, an eyeglass tinkled to the floor and rolled towards the screaming Pitman. "Hold your tongue," said Michael. He dashed to the house door and locked it. Then, with a pale face and bitten lip, he drew near, pulled aside a corner of the swathing blanket, and recoiled, shuddering. There was a long silence in the studio. "Now, tell me," said Michael in a low voice, "had you any hand in it?" And he pointed to the body. The little artist could only utter broken and disjointed sounds. Michael poured some gin into a glass. "Drink that," he said. "Don't be afraid of me. I'm your friend, through thick and thin." Pitman put the liquor down untasted. "I swear before God," he said, "this is another mystery to me. In my worst fears I never dreamt of such a thing. I would not lay a finger on a sucking infant." "That's all square," said Michael, with a sigh of huge relief. "I believe you, old boy." And he shook the artist warmly by the hand. "I thought for a moment," he added, with rather a ghastly smile, "I thought for a moment you might have made away with Mr. Seritopoulos." "It would make no difference if I had," groaned Pitman. "All is at an end for me. There's the writing on the wall." "To begin with," said Michael, "let's get him out of sight. For to be quite plain with you, Pitman, I don't like your friend's appearance." And with that the lawyer shuddered. "Where can we put it?" "You might put it in the closet there, if you could bear to touch it," answered the artist. "Somebody has to do it, Pitman," returned the lawyer, "and it seems as if it had to be me. You go over to the table, turn your back, and mix me a grog. That's a fair division of labour." About 90 seconds later, the closet door was heard to shut. "There," observed Michael, "that's more homelike. You can turn now, my pallid Pitman. Is this the grog?" he ran on. "Heaven forgive you, it's a lemonade."
But, oh, Finsbury, what are we to do with it?"
wailed the artist, laying a clutching hand upon the lawyer's arm. "Do with it?" repeated Michael. "Bury it in one of your flower beds, and erect one of your own statues for a monument. I tell you we should look devilish romantic, shovelling out the sod by the moon's pale ray. Here, put some gin in this."
"I beg of you, Mr. Finsbury, do not trifle with my misery," cried Pitman. "You see before you a man who has been all his life, I do not hesitate to say it, eminently respectable. Even in this solemn hour I can lay my hand upon my heart without a blush. Except on the really trifling point of the smuggling of the Hercules, and even of that I now humbly repent, my life has been entirely fit for publication. I never feared the light," cried the little man, "and now.
"Cheer up, old boy," said Michael. "I assure you we should count this little contretemps a trifle at the office. It's the sort of thing that may occur to any one. And if you're perfectly sure you had no hand in it—"
"What language am I to find?"
began Pitman. "Oh, I'll do that part of it," interrupted Michael. "You have no experience. But the point is this: if, or rather since, you know nothing of the crime, since the party in the closet is neither your father, nor your brother, nor your creditor, nor your mother-in-law, nor what they call an injured husband—"
"Oh, my dear sir!"
interjected Pitman, horrified. "Since, in short," continued the lawyer, "you had no possible interest in the crime, we have a perfectly free field before us, and a safe game to play. Indeed, the problem is really entertaining. It is one I have long contemplated in the light of an A.B. case. Here it is at last under my hand in specie, and I mean to pull you through. Do you hear that? I mean to pull you through. Let me see. It's a long time since I have had what I call a genuine holiday. I'll send an excuse tomorrow to the office. We'd best be lively.